Thank you, Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I apologize for being late. Just got through with a hearing on Fast and Furious, which is, of course, very important in my district, since that was where Border Patrol Agent Terry was killed. I appreciate the opportunity to ask some questions. First, question for Secretary Hale. At the last committee meeting when we discussed sequestration, I said at that time that the lack of action on this important issue is really a failure on both our part and others to getting our house in order, fiscal house in order. And we'll be voting on adjournment tomorrow. I'll vote against it. I think we should stay here and not go home. We shouldn't be so much worried about our own contracts and with our constituents and saving our jobs if we can't save the jobs of our community, our constituents from this threat. Secretary Hale, as we see this looming threat just over the horizon, can you say how it's affecting the morale of our service members, how this uncertainty is affecting both them and their families?
Well, let me take a shot at that, and I would certainly invite the vices who are probably better able. I'm particularly worried about our civilian members. For fiscal 13, we will exempt military personnel, so it won't have a direct effect on the number of military personnel, though it may have effect on their confidence in us generally. I'm particularly worried about our civilians. They will be directly affected. We would probably have to have a hiring freeze, and I suspect we would have to consider unpaid furloughs. And I think there is starting to be increasing unease in our workforce about how this is going to affect individuals, and I don't blame them. I'm very worried for them. But I would invite my my colleagues here to comment if they'd like.
Thank you, sir. From an Army perspective, as I go around to different installations and talk to soldiers and families, we're beginning to hear more and more of them ask the question of what does this really mean for us in terms of support for family programs, or what does it mean in terms of end strength? Will my soldier be caused to leave prematurely? Those types of things. And so the issue is that they are beginning to focus on it more so than we would like to see them worry about it. Again, our concern is that we don't want to break the faith with the soldiers and families that we've established over the years. I think that's one of the things that has enabled us to do what we've done in support two fights for over a decade. And let me commend our families for what they've done to date. With your support, we've been able to take great care of them. So they will continue to be with us, but again, they are focusing on it a bit more than we'd like to see.
Congressman, as I mentioned in my opening, I just returned from a tour to the Central Command of the Middle East and spoke to about 10,000 sailors on our aircraft carriers, mine force, patrol craft. At every forum, from the most senior commanders to the most junior sailor, they ask about sequestration and what it means to them, their families, and I sensed a growing anxiety over the uncertainty of our fiscal future and what it means to them and their service to the nation. And I would just offer that they're looking very strongly to us to solve this and to give them certainty so they can plan their lives and their aspirations and their future. And I think we owe them that great debt as we go forward.
Congressman, I have a similar experience. There is, I think, some growing anxiety, particularly with our civilians and depots and that, that overhaul our aircraft, engine repair, et cetera, because of the uncertainty. They don't know what's going to happen. And as I've gone out and talked to military folks, I mean, it's pretty heartwarming, I guess, to hear them. All they want is parts and to get airplanes off the ground and get satellites launched. That's all. They just want to get the mission done. And as Admiral Ferguson said, they're looking to us to get this thing behind us so we can move forward.
Congressman, I would just reemphasize a point I made in my opening statement, and that is that our folks over the past 10 years have done what they have done because of the trust and confidence they have in us. They trust that they will have the wherewithal to accomplish the mission when they go in harm's way. They trust that we will take care of their families when they are deployed. And I honestly believe they still trust that that will be the case. They still trust us to resolve this issue and make sure that they have the proper resources. But my point would be our inability to resolve this, our inability to assure them that they'll have the wherewithal to, when they go in harm's way the next time, to have what they need to accomplish the mission, I think is a significant risk. And the point I'd make about civilians is there is significant angst in the civilian community, in our civilian Marines, as we call them, about their future. And that concerns us a great deal because just like with Marines, our success with civilian Marines and what they do is important. They participate in our training, they fix our equipment, they take care of our families. And our ability to recruit and retain high-quality civilians is equally important. And I think the way we treat them and the ability that we have to provide them with some predictability in their future is also important. So those are some of the concerns I have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.